So I was raised in a mountain town in Colorado, west of Denver in the mountains, and my father worked in downtown Denver, and sometimes I would go with him to his office. And the devotees used to chant in downtown Denver in front of a May D&F department store. And it was winter time and it was very cold. But they were out there chanting, and I remember standing there with my father and then leaving the Harinam party and going with my father to his office, and then going up his elevator to his office building, to his office, which is like on the 23rd floor or something of this office building. And the holy name was in my mind. I didn't have the order of the mantra together yet, but it was, the melody was there, and the Hare and Krishna and Rama was going on in my head in some type of order. I don't remember. It was not the proper order. So that's my real introduction to Krishna Consciousness. Then, this is probably in the late 60s or early 70s. So then when I got to high school, we had one high school teacher, and he was a history teacher, and he would invite different people from different religions to come and give a talk to our class. So he invited the devotees also. So a man and his wife, a devotee and his wife, came and chanted, and I was very much appreciative of the chanting, and I relished it very much. And they gave some talk, but I don't remember anything about what they talked about. This was when I was in high school. So I was not very much inspired by high school. I didn't think that it would have much practical use in my life. So when I entered into high school, I had a plan. I will go into high school and get out as soon as possible. So I took full classes, and in the summer I took a class also. And so I graduated from high school early. And then I left home and I went to Hawaii. I was very actually anxious to start a new life. I didn't have very good friends. I wasn't happy. I needed to get a whole new environment for myself. So I went and I lived on a hippie commune on the big island of Hawaii. And this hippie commune, we were living on some land. We did not know who owned the land. We just know it was vacant. And I wasn't the origin. I wasn't there, not there for when the hippie commune started. But when I got there, there was already some shacks built. They would take some logs and put them in the ground, and then use bamboo and make lofts and a roof, and then use the palm trees. They'd weave the palm tree leaves and make the roof, and then put tin on top of that. And so then when it rains, it would go into barrels, and that would be our drinking water. Well, there's no electricity, there's no running water. We had some gas for cooking, and we were doing gardening, and there was drugs there. We would go to the in the evening we'd go to the neighbors and steal fruit from their trees, and in the daytime I'd go down to the beach and I'd climb the coconut trees if they weren't too tall, and I'd throw down green coconuts to my friends, and then I'd go down and have them also. We go swimming every day, and we'd go to the government and say we're poor, and they would give us what's called food stamps. So then we could go to the health food store and, get some food stuff. And in this way, we were living a hippie life. No job, and I remember coming there with I think $1,500, and I put it in a jar, and I put it in the earth, and covered it and put a rock on it so I knew where it was, and it stayed there. I never felt the necessity to even get money for, we were, living very primitively, and there was a lot of other people around, and everyone kind of lived together and contributed what they have, and we ate, and we, gardened, and some people would grow marijuana and sell it, and so on and so forth. It was a hippie commune. So then after some time, some elderly lady came. She was in her mid-40s. She was quite old. I was like 18, 19, and everyone else was in their 20s, and she was like 45. And she went to the government, and this particular land was granted by the government if you cultivated it. If you did agriculture, you could get this land, and as long as you cultivated it, it would be yours. So we didn't know that, but she found out, and she went there, and she said, okay, the person you gave the rights to the land is not cultivating it, so I will cultivate it. So then she got the legal rights to this land. And she did not like me very much. And I was using some tools, and I was clearing some brush away. Hawaii is like jungle. And I had to grow papayas and make gardens. And she said, can I borrow your tools? I said, well, not right now, I'm using them. They were in my hands, and I was working. And she goes, actually, why don't you go? Why don't you leave? So I was quite surprised. I had my little, house and my piece of land that I considered to be mine, even though I did not legally own it. But I went to a friend's house, and I threw the I Ching. It's Chinese, and you throw coins. Traditionally they use sticks, but you can also use coins. And you throw the coins, and you throw them 6 times, and if you give 2 tails and a heads, it's a broken line, and if it's all tails, anyway, you make a pattern on a piece of paper when you throw the coins. There's a system. And then you look in the book. You have a question, and then you throw, and in your mind is that question. So I said, what should I do? The situation, what should I do? And so I looked in the book, and it said, you have done nothing wrong. There's another person who's not being righteous to you, but go ahead and leave, and you will find the absolute truth. So I said, okay, I'll go. So there were some devotees living there in this hippie commune also. You see, back in the late 60s, 70s, up to the mid-70s, we didn't have such strong, favorable samskaras. And tendency is to take up something and then stay with it for some period of time, and then leave it and get into something else, especially in the youth. So people would join the Krishna Consciousness movement, and many times they didn't stay. And in those days, either you were in the temple and living in the temple, or if you were outside the temple, you were breaking the 4 regular principles. Either, illicit sex, intoxication. Those are the primary problems, or both, most likely both. So these devotees were living with us, and of course they were breaking the 4 good principles. But anyway, they were still devotees in their heart. They didn't preach. They never preached to me. But then I went to one of them and I told them I'm leaving. And I told him what happened. And he goes, well, I know. I said, I don't know where I'm going. And he says, well, I know a place you can go. He goes, but you have to follow 4 rules. So I said, okay, what are these 4 rules? And so he gave me what the 4 good principles were. And he goes, okay, I'll go there for some time. And then after that, I'll figure out where to go next. So I put my belongings in my backpack and walked up to the road, stuck out my thumb. This is how we used to get around. You put your thumb out and the cars go by and they see someone putting their thumb out. It's called hitchhiking. And you get, if they feel like they want to pick you up, they stop. You get in the car and you tell them where you're going, and they will take you as far as they're going. As long as it's, and if you want to get out, then you tell them you want to get out. You're not going that way. You want to go, So then I got a ride, and they were going right by where I needed to go. And so then they dropped me off. It was about an hour and a half. I'm on the big island of Hawaii. And the highway's there. And on the island of Hawaii, it's 2 volcanoes right next to each other. One is extinct. It hasn't been active in many years. And the other one is active. And even today, it's erupting periodically, and the island is always getting bigger, because the lava flows down into the ocean and the island's getting larger. So this is on the side where it's the inactive volcano. So you walk up it's a volcano, it's a mountain. So they drop me off at the bottom, and I walk up this hill, and it was a Hare Krishna farm. And I didn't know anything. I'd seen the devotees, I'd heard the chanting, I hadn't read any books, I didn't know anything of the philosophy, 0. I heard the talk one time in my high school, but it didn't no remembrance of what was there, what they talked about. So I went there, and they let me in, and I had my sleeping bag, and I went to sleep at night, and we got up in the morning and went to Mongol Artik, and they gave me some beads, and I remember dancing the first day. It was all brahmacharis, and it was a nice group, maybe 12 of them, and we had Gornitai deities, and there was an artik, and they played drum nicely and sang nicely, and it was very attractive. So I stayed for some period of time, and then I decided I would stay. And then Srila Prabhupada came 2 weeks after I joined. So I was quite new, and right before Srila Prabhupada came, this one devotee, he shaved my head, and I put on a saffron dhoti immediately, not like these days where you have to earn your saffron. We did not earn our saffron. It was the temples actually in Srila Prabhupada's time were full of saffron. And then there was Matajis also. There was the Brahmacharini ashram, and then there was the Brahmachari ashram. And there was a few people that were married. But in those days, there was a big pressure, to be brahmachari, don't get married, And if someone got married, it was very embarrassing to take off saffron and putting on white. It was considered, But anyway, so Srila Prabhupada came to our farm, very rustic, no electricity, no running water, no river. We depended on rainwater. The water would go off the roof into a big barrel, a big tank. And it would fill up, and then we use it for cooking, we use it for bathing. But sometimes the water would run out, and we'd have to go down the hill to some park and fill up 55-gallon stainless steel drums, not stainless steel, but steel drums, and bring it up and use that. So it was quite problematic. And in those times, we would in the morning time when we got up, we would run up the hill. There was a pond, and we used to jump in the pond to take our morning bath. And then we'd come down and we'd, get ready, put on our dhotis and everything. So I remember those days. We would go up and jump into that pond, and I was so happy to learn I wasn't this body, because I didn't have a very, I'm not like an ideal human specimen as far as my body goes. It's quite thin, and being from America, I was quite I had a little bit of a complex of not being, because I'm thinking on my body, and my body's so thin, and it was a problem for me, because I'm ambitious, I'm American, I want to be, and I even would have, if I had a proper body, I probably would have been like a football player or something. I had the mind for that, but I couldn't. So frustration was there in my life. So I became a hippie, and So Srila Prabhupada came, he drove up, and I'm with all the devotees, and Srila Prabhupada steps out of the car, and we all pay our dandavats. It's very rustic. This is just like, we're not, there's no other people around, there's no buildings. We're right in like sugarcane field. And they built the temple out of shacks. They took different shacks that were around and took the boards and made, that was used for the sugarcane workers in the past, before the big machinery came in and they didn't require so many workers, mostly from Philippines. They would take the workers from the Philippines. So it was a very rustic. And so Srila Prabhupada came. There was no toilet. We had an outhouse, but no proper facilities. So Srila Prabhupada came. We all paid our obeisances. I was quite in awe just looking at him, and because everyone else is showing so much respect, then you feel like showing so much respect also, because of association. And so I developed that immediately, that respect for Srila Prabhupada. So we brought him into the temple room. A couple of sannyasis were there. Guru Kripa Swami, Paramahansa Swami, Karandar was there. He was from the temple president in Los Angeles. Govinda Dasi was there. She and her husband Gaurasundar were the people that brought Krishna Consciousness to Hawaii. And we had an artik. 75. This is 1975, yes. I joined on May 8th, 1975. So then, the artik is there, they offer the incense, Then they offer the ghee lamp, and then I take the ghee lamp and I offer it to the devotees first and Srila Prabhupada last. I was thinking, oh, just like in America, dessert, like you have your prasadam and you eat your sweet last, unless you're Gujarati. But, you know, so I was saying, oh, save the best for last. So I offered to Prabhupada last. Then, you know, then after the ghee lamp, there's the handkerchief, and then the water. Offer the water. I take the water, I do the same thing. Offer it to all the devotees first, and Srila Prabhupada last. And same thing with the flowers. And no one said anything to me. And Srila Prabhupada, you know, when I offered it to him last, he didn't show any sign of being, you know, what do you think you're doing? I'm supposed to be offered first. He did not show that type of mood. He just simply took the hand and on the flame, and he accepted the water on his head, and he smelled the flower, like that. So then the Artik was over, and the Shringadev prayers were over. You know, Guru Kripa Prabhu Maharaj at the time led a very powerful kirtan, and it was very nice. So then we all sat down to hear Srila Prabhupada speak. So, I don't remember what he spoke, but some of the devotees that were they're still devotees, but they left the temple and they're breaking the Four Good Principles. And they're now long hair, they've become hippies again. That many of them had come. There's so many on the big island. So our temple room was crowded with these type of people. Now, hippies, I don't know if you're aware, but when they're in their hippie commune, they don't wear clothes. Everyone walks around with no clothes on. And when they come out, they definitely don't wear underwear. They just put on some pants and a t-shirt and, you know, just go. So I was sitting next to this one, you know, I guess I should call her a Mataji, and she was the girlfriend of the devotee from the hippie commune. And she was not sitting properly in front of Srila Prabhupada. She was sitting with her legs up, and she had a skirt on, and it was just like, and Srila Prabhupada's right there. So I told her, you know, sit like this, and it's okay, she sat like that. This hippie life was like animals. It was really. So, Prabhupada gave the class, and then after the class is over, Srila Prabhupada, you know, gets prasadam, and I'm walking around, and there's kind of not very strongly built, and I made too much noise, and so Guru Kripa Swami told me, you go outside, because when you're walking around, you're too heavy-footed. And Srila Prabhupada's taking prasad, it needs to be peaceful for him. So I went outside and there were so many hippies out there. Some of them had been devotees, some of them hadn't. But the hippies were very much attracted to being vegetarians, and they were attracted to Eastern philosophy. So I went outside, and then Srila Prabhupada gave the word that he had to use the toilet. He had to pass stool. So someone asked who would like to dig a hole so Srila Prabhupada could pass stool. So they had made some arrangement around a tree with some cloth right next to the temple outside. And I said, I'll do it. So I got to dig a hole, and Srila Prabhupada went in there with a loda, and he passed stool, and then he came back, and he, you know, I don't remember if the arrangements were there for him to take a shower or not. I don't think so. It was so rustic, it was so primitive. And so that was my first service to Srila Prabhupada. So then Srila Prabhupada had a discussion with the GBC, the sannyasi, the temple president of LA, and our temple president on the farm. And Srila Prabhupada came to the conclusion, this farm, it has to be sold. This is not a proper facility to do a farm because we're depending on rainwater. And to do a proper farm, you need a stream, a river, some perennial source of water for proper, hygiene and cleanliness and cooking and everything for human life. So then they decided to sell the farm. So I had been milking the cows and doing the garden, Anyway, they decided they took the cows away, they took the deities away, all the devotees left except for two devotees were there. I was there with one other devotee until the farm sold. And I kept doing the gardening, but also I started doing Sankirtan. I started doing I started selling BTGs, and it was Christmas time, and I went to the shopping mall and the parking lot. And before that, I went door to door all by myself. I had no training, no one taught me how to do it. I just went out and I started Sankirtan. And then they sold the farm, and it was January 1st, 1976. I moved the first, January 1st. I got on an airplane and flew to Honolulu. And I was put out in the stoplights. And at the stoplights, just like in India, the stoplights, people sell things. We would go when the stoplight was red, the car stopped, you go up, and I had like a pitcher for pouring drinks. And I put, I had candy, and I'd give them a piece of candy, and then I said, give a donation we're feeding hungry people or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then they'd give a quarter or $1 maybe or something like that. And then as soon as we got $5, I took a 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and put it in their car. The big, thick 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just $5, after every $5, just put it with whoever car it was. I won 25 cents or whatever it was. So I started doing that. And I was collecting $30, $40, $50 in a day. So, but then the devotees, they went to Mayapur. And I got to go to the street. In Honolulu, there's a street, the place is called Waikiki. It's where all the tourists go. And there was 2 Japanese Matajis married to Americans, and they were out there collecting, and this is a place where Japanese tourists come. People from all over the world. But the Japanese tourists are primarily honeymoon couples. So then I was out there, and you give the champak flower on the bobby pin, and it's the Hawaiian custom. The ladies, they put it on the right side if they're not married, and on the left side means they're married. So I'd hand the flower, and I didn't have very good brahmachari training, so I'd ask if the girls, if they're on their honeymoon. I learned how to speak Japanese from these Japanese girls. And if they said yes, I'd say, okay, congratulations. Here's a flower for you. This means you're married. And I'd put it in their left hand, and then I'd say, please give a donation. We're feeding hungry people, in India. And I would say, everyone's giving $20. And I said, $20 feeds a kid for a month. And then if they gave that nicely, I'd say, wife also. And then maybe I would get $40. And in this way, I learned how to, in one donation, sometimes I would make more than I would make on this street light all day long. Anyway, when Prabhupada came, when the day Srila Prabhupada came, I broke the record for that place. It had the biggest collection because I really was focusing on the Japanese. I find myself, I have an airplane ticket to Japan. In those days, generally speaking, if you were the property of the temple that you were at, you were owned by that temple. And it wasn't good practice to leave that temple because you want to leave. Because then you wouldn't get a good reputation. They say, oh, he's just not a steady person, we don't want him. So sometimes they would trade devotees. They would trade like a cook for a pujari, so a pujari from like Los Angeles temple would come to Hawaii, and then Hawaii temple would send a cook, or different arrangements were made. These different types of bartering would go on for trading devotees. I wasn't traded. I was kidnapped. Now my DBC, he didn't care what the temple president thought. And Srila Prabhupada was there. And after maybe 1 week, because Srila Prabhupada would spend 1 month every year in Hawaii, and I had to leave. So, before leaving though, I got to go on to a couple morning walks. I went to, Guru Puja, and I got to hear the Bhagavatam class every morning. But then I had to go. I had the airplane ticket. There was no choice. And so I went to Japan and started collecting. And I did well. I had already learned the lines. And we were collecting for Juhu at that time, Juhu Temple. But this was during the period when we were getting persecuted. Everyone thought we were being brainwashed. We were a cult. It was in all the it was in Time magazine, Newsweek. It was a big propaganda against us and other religious organizations. And some of them were cults, but they lumped us in with them. And so they would not give us the proper visa so we could go out and like sell books and get donations. So we just went there. They'd already been doing it for quite some time. All the devotees just went there on tourist visa, and they just went out on the street here and there all over Japan and give a magazine, say, please give a donation, we're feeding hungry people in India. And then at the end of the day, you'd have maybe $300 if an average collection like that. Day after day, maybe 15 of us all over Japan, staying here and there in hotels, cheap hotels, and going to train stations and shopping centers and nightclub areas, just different places all over the country. Japan has half the population of the United States in the size of California. So there's many different places where there's many cities and populated areas. So this was the place that this particular sannyasi, he was a sannyasi at the time, Guru Kripa Swami, took a party and first built the Lotus building and the Long building in Mayapur. That was all from Japan. Then the whole Vrindavan project, the temple, the guest house, and the Gurukula. And then a good portion of Juhu. Like that. So it was a time-tested program. By the time I got there, they'd already been going on for some period of time. And because we were not legal, we started getting in trouble. The immigration department They were aware of us, and they first would give us a warning. And they would take our name down, and if they would catch us again, then they would take you to jail. So I got caught twice, and I went to jail with 2 other devotees. One of them is here, Banabhata Prabhu. Me and Banabhata Prabhu and another devotee named Dhanyavad, we were in jail for 15 days together, collecting for this project. And then we were put on an airplane to Hawaii. Immediately, we went to a lawyer. We changed our names legally, got new passports, and went right back to Japan with new name, a different name on a passport, and it was nothing illegal about it, as far as that goes. And we went right back and continued. We were Prabhupada wanted, Mayapur built. Prabhupada wanted Vrindavan built. Prabhupada wanted Juhu built. These are his 3 main temples. These are his pet projects. And we were going to do it. We didn't care. We were determined. And we were from that kind of a background, also coming from hippies, that we didn't care about the law. We were going to do what we wanted anyway. And so, needless to say, I got caught again. But this time I was alone. And so I went back to jail. They found out that it was the same person with a new name and they thought I had a fake passport. So I was in jail this time alone for 38 days. So then they flew me back to Hawaii, and I didn't change my name again. Actually, I changed my name back to my original name. And so instead of going to Japan, I stayed in Hawaii, and Japan came to me. So I continued collecting, and half the money I was collecting went to the Hawaii temple, and half the money I was collecting went to Juhu. That was the arrangement. So this is 1977 now. And I came to Mayapur. I had gotten my first initiation in 76, and then in February, and this is like February 1977, and I got my second initiation on Gurpurnim Day, 1977 in Mayapur, India, on Gurpurnim in Mayapur. And unfortunately, Srila Prabhupada was sick, so he didn't do the yajna, but he had given some classes, but then he got too sick and he didn't come down anymore. So and also before coming to Mayapur, he was in Vrindavan, and I got some darshan there from him also. So, because I'm very young compared to my godbrothers, and then of course, Srila Prabhupada left this planet in November of 1977. So I'm just like an infant. It's like I'd been a devotee for 2.5 years, and Srila Prabhupada left this world. And in some ways, it was good, because then I was so much younger than my godbrothers that had became gurus, and I just was obedient, and I didn't, even though so many problems were there, it was like some of our leaders, they weren't ready to take on that type of responsibility, and they had problems, and so many problems were there. And growing, after the pure devotee leaves the planet, it is normal that there is big challenges. But I just kept going out on Sankirtan, selling books, collecting money. That was my focus. And so many things went on around me. It didn't really bother me so much. I continued on. And I can't really say so much about Srila Prabhupada and in my dealings with him, because I never spoke to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada never spoke to me. I just saw him. I heard him. I went on some morning walks. And that's to my eternal benefit. And so I feel it is a blessing in disguise, because now I'm hankering to get more of Srila Prabhupada. And I will get Srila, I have confidence and faith that I will see Srila Prabhupada again, and I will be able to, you know, like, this is like Sambandha, and then Abhideya. I can like establish more like a relationship with my spiritual master in the future, like that. So anyway, everything else is history. It's been 43 years, so I don't want to go through every other. This is a time of my life in Srila Prabhupada's presence. I was in jail for a total of 53 days, 2 different times, total of 53 days, and Srila Prabhupada was on the planet. And I turned 21 years old in the immigration jail. Immigration jail is not so bad. It's not like hard criminals. It's people that, like me, who were on a tourist visa and were doing something they're not supposed to do on. And so it's not that they punished us, but we were just confined for some period of time and treated nicely, so to speak, like that. Srila Prabhupada, his gravity and his level-headedness and his, you know, his detachment and he was otherworldly. You could tell he wasn't part of this world. And so therefore he wasn't like affected by the external situation he was in, just like when he came to the Big Island of Hawaii and he's surrounded by all these hippies, and his demeanor was focused. He was like inward. And he would relate, answer questions, but he had this like inner peace, inner awareness, and he had this Shakti about him that made people like attracted to him. That's what attracted me the most to Srila Prabhupada.